I gotta pull it together.
Yeah, you do need to pull it together.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Candace.
And welcome to Don't Start.
And as we like to say, don't start.
Candace, save it for the show.
Exactly. So let's get to it.
I love a good morning time. Oh, I made another pot.
Okay, wait. So I put my coffee in the fridge and keep going back to it.
No, but I love it for you. Chad makes fun of me because I am similar in a way that I like to save my coffee. So I put it in the fridge when I don't finish it. And Chad's like, I can't, it's like one of his things where he's like, he also, we need to look this up and fact check this. Chad said coffee is one of the ones, one of the most, could get bacteria quicker than other things.
Oh, well, then I'm definitely going to die.
And that's why I think he might be kind of creeped out by it that I leave it in the fridge.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to die of some disease because my coffee's always in the fridge because I can't finish it. I'll do it for a full 24 hours.
Oh, isn't it a delightful gift in the next morning when I see that it's already made it? And if I don't finish a Starbucks that I put in the fridge, I'm like, tomorrow I'm going to be so happy.
Because I can't drink too much coffee and caffeine before a show. Nice. Do you feel like that?
I am incredibly sensitive to caffeine. So I am not an energy drink person. Before performances, if I have something that's using some major brain and memorization, I am big and feeling grounded before performances.
I become a total spaz.
I work with will drink caffeine through the roof. And I'm like, how are you grounded with your lines, who you are, who you're speaking to, the environment? I'm like, the noise and the lights and maybe even the pyro, that's high stimulation. So I need to be very grounded in that kind of way.
Me too. I get a little bouncy off the walls. And I just don't make sense and I'm mumbling. Also too, gonna do a crazy segue, but what we ingest makes us feel a certain way and how we behave, right? And what goes on in our bodies, what we put in, and then has some sort of chemical mental.
Right. Well, we talk about the stomach being connected to the nervous system. There's how many nerves endings within our stomach that it's our second brain. So yeah, so I'm assuming what we eat will obviously affect how we behave.
I mean, I think so.
But we're not the professionals here. We got
absolutely not. You're right. Let's bring in the expert. But before we do, of course, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Brooke Weinstein, or Dr. B, maybe we can call her. I don't know. We'll have to ask. She's been on BuzzFeed, Forbes, People, NBC. She's been featured almost everywhere. She is a renowned thought leader in neuroscience-based parenting. She specializes in sensory and emotional regulation strategies that empower all humans to lead their lives with calm. Calm, calm, calm. We cannot wait to interview Dr. Brooke.
One of my favorite things that I read about her, I know you follow her very closely, but rewire your brain for calm and not chaos. And that's something I would say within the last 5 years, right? Probably 35 and beyond. I've been more closely aware of that within myself. I remember a conversation I had with Chad when we first met about going Christmas shopping at the mall. Nothing is how stressful is that to go find parking? Jersey Mall parking at Christmas. And I said, Chad, you just park far away and you just walk.
Look at you trying to be calm.
I might have said that story before, but the times I'm thinking about car, that kind of energy and fury, where you're just take your time. It's not worth it. Other people can be around you throwing their arms and being furious, but how we react within ourselves will keep us calm. And that kind of exercise mentally, emotionally is very hard, but I think that's something that
I think we all got to work on ourselves, and maybe Dr. B can help get us there, or they'll have a little bit of a better day. Let's bring in Dr. B. Hey, Don't Start friends. Before we jump into our interview for today, we just wanted to thank you all so much for the support and ask you to click that subscribe and follow us on social media. You can follow us at Don't Start the Podcast, or Candace Gardino, or Sarah Schreiber. Now back to our show.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, Dr. Brooke.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Well, thank you for having me.
Look at that spectacular hair.
I mean, look at this office.
Yeah, the degrees, the diplomas.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You're
This
coming from
actually used to
Texas
be
right
my
now?
dining room.
Oh.
And I was like, fuck that. No one uses that.
Yes, that's the way to do it.
All right, we feel comfortable now.
We're more than good. Yes.
Okay, great.
We're more than good.
Dr. B, I went ahead and started calling you Dr. B.
Whatever comes out of your mouth is totally fine for me.
Great. So, Dr. B, it is. Okay, tell us, how did this all start for you? I mean, start at the beginning. We'd love to hear it.
When I first started doing this work, I actually had to use a lot of the language like burnout, guilt,
Yeah.
shame, depleted, exhausted. Like I had to, no joke, almost take my community on a journey of like, you can trust me here. And then I eventually was like, it's time. And I just kind of went full throttle. But when I first started this many, many years ago, not many people were talking about the nervous system. No one was like, oh my gosh, I'm so overstimulated. No one was like, oh my gosh, I'm so dysregulated, right? Like that wasn't like natural everyday language that people just like talked about.
Well, Brooke, I would say actually what we were talking about prior to this, before you coming on, is that both of us have a background in entertainment and performance. So for us, for me, I know, I was always aware of my nerves and how I can use them as my strength and my power, or how do I regulate it to make me feel grounded. But that's based on our occupation, right? That we are aware of it. You hear about it.
Wow, that's actually really interesting. You know, I've danced since the age of 2 and like loved being on a stage and loved performing. And I wouldn't really say I had nerves doing it. I think I got more like heightened and excited.
Yeah.
But I think that dance for me was my first experience of, as a child, naturally regulating my nervous system without even knowing that that's what that was, or that that's what I was feeling, or that's what I was doing. But I truly believe that that was my natural way. And many children have natural ways of regulating their nervous system, even if they're driving you fucking nuts and they're bouncing from like task to task to task. And, you know, they're climbing on the stairwell and they're driving you nuts. That's their way of trying to regulate their nervous system. But for me, it was for sure through movement and dance.
I love that. Dr. B, there's so much stuff out there, and I mean stuff where it's an Instagram reel, a TikTok reel, whatever it is, you know, trying to help us either stay calm, regulate our nervous system, but it's like, here's the tip of the day, and here's the one thing you need to do. And I don't want to fall victim of being like, yeah, you do this one thing and your life changes. But I would love to know, is there anything that you would suggest, or how do you feel about that with people like just clicking onto social media and giving their, you know, advice?
So the way in which I really, you know, anyone can really say anything, and people do say any and everything at this time. I don't know if you watch, you know, reels where people are like, I'm just going to shove my face in a bucket of ice. And like, who the fuck has time? Like, 18-month-old, do you have time to shove your face in a bucket of ice? And like, do you really want to do that? Because that doesn't sound like fun to me. Or like the people are like, right, like 30 seconds to regulate your nervous system. All that is like clickbait. It's bullshit. It doesn't work. It's just not, you know, it's just for likes and metrics and all the things. But when I was building this in terms of how do I get people to understand, to your question, like, how do I get people to understand how to be able to do this in the most naturalistic way? Because if I told you, again, to stick your face in a bucket of ice water, or like box breathe or journal or meditate, you'd be like, been there, done that, doesn't work. Also don't have time for that, but thanks. Right? Like, cool. So I really took some time as a doctor of occupational therapy, working in pediatrics for over a decade, having my own clinic prior to this business, and really figuring out, okay, I know all of my book knowledge. I know all of the knowledge from seeing pediatrics in a hospital setting, a medical daycare, school setting, outpatient, like you name it, I saw it all. And then also I'm a mom. So like, how do I make all of this work? Because I know how to be a clinician, but I don't necessarily know how to make this work in my own home without adding more to my plate. And so I collected data for probably a year and a half to 2 years of just observing myself and observing my children and watching my own nervous system and how it would function and looking at my own stimuli and my own behaviors and seeing how if I would be heightened, I wouldn't even know or recognize I was heightened until I had like piles of clothes, you know, in my little, you know, wasn't like hoarding, but it was like, I had a pile here, a little pile there. The counter was completely a mess. And that's more of like that low registration piece of like, I'm not seeing this because I'm so heightened. And I would like snap out of it and be like, wow, okay, got it. That's where I was at. And so then I would regulate and I would come down off that curve. And then I would see that my children were still up there and heightened. And so then I had to support them and bring them down. And at first it took me, I mean, it would be a month and I was like, oh, wow, okay, there. All right. Well, that's not so great. And then I got it down to like 2-3 weeks. And then I got it down to a week. And then I got it down to an hour. And I was like, shut the fuck up. Like, whoa, like, look at this. But your children will follow you. And the hardest part is when you're like, okay, I'm in a regulated state, but they're still up there. You're like, they're driving me nuts. Like, why won't they just like be quiet? Like just go in your room and be quiet. Right. It's because they will follow your ebb and flow of your own nervous system because you are, or you should remain in the driver's seat, right? As a parent. And so they feed off of your energy. They listen in, you know. I don't know for anyone listening if they've ever done any type of research or had any experiences with horses, but they talk about the horse's energetic field and energy and how they can literally like lean in and feel everything. And I've done a lot of work with horses, especially as I was moving through grief and healing through grief. And they're like, excuse me, like you had another thought, but like, so we're disconnected. Like they're instantly like that. We don't have as great of an energy field as horses do. However, we still feel it and our children know it. And we can even feel it with our own children when they're really struggling. And let's say we're regulated and they're not, right? So it's really beneficial for all parties to know how they're feeling, know how to support themselves, and know how to support each other so that the dynamic in your house is not a circus, if you will.
Yeah, Brooke, can I ask you this question? We're talking a lot about energy, right? And I love that term. That's something that I feel very connected to. I could feel it in a space. I know how it affects myself. But for some people, maybe that doesn't come off as a scientific, even though it should, of course, term. It comes off a little bit, and stay with me.
Woo-woo.
Yes, I was going to say hippy dippy. How are you explaining it to someone that's more medically and scientifically
I think that's a
trained?
very fair question. I actually don't lean on the side of woo-woo. I am more based in like and grounded in science, in research, in data, in the neuroscience. When I explain things, I try to give a ton of examples or so many layman's terms that people will understand, because it may not be their norm. If I'm like, well, your amygdala is activated when this happens, and that is why you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck is an amygdala? Yeah, exactly. Right. So
What the fuck is
are you guys enjoying all my cursing? Right. I had one.
Are
F-bomb
you
and it's
from
been,
the
like, ever since
Northeast?
then, right?
Are you from the Northeast?
Not. I'm from New Orleans. And a
Oh
lot
my
of people,
God. Yeah,
a
you
lot of
come
people
off
ask
like
me
you're
if
from
I'm
the
from
North.
New York. A lot of
Yes, that
people.
you come off like a New Yorker for sure.
You do. You're such a New Yorker.
That's
We
what
love it.
We're coming from that area.
Yes.
So you can think of your energy as like regulation, right? Like
Yeah.
how is, and you know, a lot of people think the language of your brain, if you've ever even thought about this, which nerd Brooke over here does all the time, but the language of your brain is not the words that are coming out of your mouth. That's not the language of your brain. That's psychology. That's what we have all been taught is based in mental health, right? If you go to talk therapy, you're handling your mental health. That's completely false. It's
Mhm.
like completely false. It's just what we have all been taught is the proper way, the norm, the typical way, like the status quo way, or the certified way. Everyone's certified, right? The language of your brain is actually your behaviors, right? And the things that are coming out of your body, right? So if you are chewing your shirt, like if you have a child who's chewing on their shirt, that's language, right? Like if you have a child who kicks their sheets down at night and you're like pulling them out from underneath the comforter, that's language. If you have a
Mhm.
child who can't sit still in their chair and the teacher's saying they can't sit still in their chair, or you can't get them to sit still during dinner time, or like that's language. Like if you're chewing on a pen cap, that's language. If you're chewing on your nails, that's language. If you're picking your skin, that's language. Like it's all the language of your brain. And so as it relates to like energy, I want you to think of it more as like the language of my brain and the behaviors of my brain is demonstrating to me how I'm doing regulation wise.
Yeah.
And am I giving a lot of energy? Am I not giving a lot of energy? Not in terms of the more woo woo, but more of like,
Yeah.
am I depleting my energy, or do I have the energy, and am I able to go do the things I want to do?
And can we just start from the very beginning for someone that wouldn't understand the term nervous system regulation? How would you explain it to someone?
Okay, that's a really, really great question. So, your nervous system is tied to everything within your body. It is a group of nerves, if you will, and it goes down. If you've ever seen like the spinal cord or a bone, there's like a hole in the middle, right? That is all nerves, and it goes up into your brain and then all the way down your spinal cord, right? So if you get into a car accident and you have a spinal cord injury, and then you don't have feeling from, let's say, your rib cage down, that's because your nerves were severed, right? So your nerves are no longer able to feel what they should be feeling. Now, if you take it a step further, when we talk about the nervous system and how it processes information, so that's called sensory processing. Okay. So if you have a really loud environment, right? Let's say your kids are playing with the really annoying siren truck, and right, and the TV's on really loud, and you've got like the vent fan going because you're cooking dinner, and right, your brain is taking in all of that stimuli. Okay, that's sound. I just discussed sound, but it's also taking in light, it's taking in touch, it's taking in all the different stimuli that are within the world, right? Auditory, visual, hearing, like all those different things. Your brain then is processing it. Once it takes it in, it then processes it, and then the behavior is then spit out, right? So then you have a reaction, or you have a response to all the different stimuli coming at you. So if you are laying in bed and your partner touches you and you're like, do not fucking touch me with a 10-foot pole. I want it to be dark and black and silent and peaceful. And I am touched out and I cannot be intimate with you right now. That doesn't mean that you dislike your partner, that you hate your partner, that you want a divorce. Maybe you do, right? That's totally fine too, because we all have a highs and lows within every relationship, right? But usually that's a stimuli of touch, and your body and brain is rejecting that. It processed it and it's spitting out a response, and it's saying, yeah, no, that's not what I want. That's not what I need. I need a dark black room with peace and silence. And like, I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to be needed by anyone or anything. Right. And that's what your body is craving. That's the sensory processing piece of like, that's how I regulate my nervous system, when I recognize, yeah, no, I don't want to be touched. Yeah, no, like, stop pulling on my sweatshirt, or like, yeah, I need you to turn the volume down, or like the toy needs to be thrown in the trash, maybe, or you know what I mean? That's when you're tending to your nervous system of You have to listen into those cues. You have to listen into the language of your brain.
Okay, Dr. B, I'm going to ask the question. How do we fix it?
So if I had a dime for every time someone asked me this question, I would be a bazillionaire. The hardest part,
That's why
right?
you
The
have a major
hardest,
social media following.
I know. The hardest part is, and I've gotten these comments too before on some of my reels of like, you're always giving us information on what this means or what this looks like, or to be able to identify the awareness of what it is. But like, how do I quote fix it? Or in my language, I don't want you to fix anything. I want you to support. Like, I want you to support your body. I want you to support your brain. Now, the reason I can't say go box breathe, journal, meditate, right? Like, and that's why I think that's all bullshit, is because Candace, your brain is going to work differently than mine. And Sarah, yours is going to work differently than mine. And what I mean by that is we all have a different brain makeup, right? There are kids who people listening to this are like, yeah, that's my child. They're jumping off the wall and they're bouncing from task to task to task to task to task. If I explained another child and I was like, actually, if your child is sitting and attending to a task for a very long period of time and you call their name and they're like not, in they're like in outer space and you're like, hello, like, do you hear me? That is a completely different sensory language processing, right? It's all behavior. So you can be a seeker, which is like you're craving tons and tons and tons of sensory input into your body. You can be an avoider where you don't want a lot of input into your body. You can also think of seekers and avoiders as more of that introvert extrovert, right? Extroverts are usually seekers. Introverts are usually avoiders. There's also low registration. If you trip on things, if you have bruises all over your body, if you miss verbal cues, if you bump into the corner of the wall, or like, that low registration means you're not really registering the world and environment around you. And then the last one is sensory sensitivity, right? Of all the different stimuli, are you sensitive to them? Or are you like, nah, it doesn't bother me. Like, it's fine, right? So if I'm a seeker, which I'm a gas pedal, like I'm a full blown gas pedal, right? The work of my life is to learn how to very slowly step on the brake, as well as use my throttle, right, between the gas and the brake, be able to go when I need to go and do what I need to do, but also be able to slow down, right? Because if I don't slow down, my brain and body's going to be like, you got to sit your ass down, or I'm going to force you to sit your ass down, right? Opposite is like, if we have someone who's more of an avoider tendency, we might need to like rev their engine a little bit to get them going to rise to the occasion. And so that is why it is so crucially important for people to understand that this is not about a quick fix, but what it is about is learning, how does your engine run? Learning, what is your engine like? Are you a diesel? Are you an electric? Are you like, what kind, like, do you take premium gas? Do you take, like, what I'm saying? Like, if you don't understand the makeup of your brain, how can I tell you how to go support your system? Right. So, what I do when working with clients is I help them physically feel, like literally feel the difference between what feels like dysregulation versus what feels like regulation for them individually. And that's through living everyday life and collecting a lot of data. And just really, all I need you to do is live your life, and I will help you find the patterns and learn and all the things. And then from that, based on triggers or based on different stimuli or based on what's going on in your life, then we will figure out and co-create what is going to work for you, but not like what works for me, because you may not be able to implement that into your everyday life, right? But we have to figure out what's going to work for you within your everyday life that's actually feasible, doable, and is a long-term solution. It's not about like a quick fix, but it's more about longevity of your mental health and being able to know that at the like any moment in your life, you have the power and control. And I mean that in like that feels empowering, not controlling way, but like this is so empowering that I know that I full blown have the ability to support my own brain and my own body. And I know that that's the root of my own mental health, right? It's not really about, again, the quick fixes or even sometimes the medication. And medication is not right or wrong, but having the capacity to understand how to support your individual brain is the most important thing to me in my eyes.
And Dr. Brooke, do you work with all different ages or are you focused on
Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
your
So
clients?
I worked with pediatrics, like I said, for over a decade. And again, I did that in the hospital setting, home health. I did schools, medical daycares, the NICU. Like I saw any and every diagnosis, which really gave me a really great basis of knowledge of just getting out there and getting my feet wet and learning. I also did adults, which was not my jam. But I did like the rehab floor. Like this dude had
Yeah.
like a dislocated shoulder, and I was like, okay, Mr. So and Mr. Fred, it's time to get out of bed. And he's like, don't you people know this shit hurts? And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna pass for today, and I'll just write that in your note and see you later. Like I don't know. There was something with children that felt like I could impact their lives for the rest of their lives rather than
Yeah.
like adults was like, especially older adults. I was like, yeah, I'm not quite sure you're going to like change that much.
Well, that was going to say, that's what I was going to
Right.
say. What do you feel like the difference is with treating children and adults?
Yeah. Well, now I don't work with children. I like
Okay.
never work with children. And I still feel like I'm impacting the lives of hundreds and hundreds of children through working with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Once I Exactly. Exactly. So I at a very, very young age, I opened my clinic and I was like, we're going to do things different. And I still didn't feel like the treatment was really beneficial in the way I was longing for it to be with the child. And once I sold that business to my business partner, moved here to Texas, I took some time off and I was like, what went well? What didn't go well? What would I have done differently? What I want for the next time if I did this? And what I really recognized was that parents don't have any more time for like OT homework to be like, okay, can you get them to lick it and kiss it and touch it and like it and eat the non-preferred food, right? And I was like, this isn't working because I'm only seeing this child one time a week for maybe an hour, right? So like, how am I going to impact this child if the parent doesn't know and have the expertise and knowledge that I have.
Makes
Right.
complete
And that's when I was like, again, I know how to be an OT and I know how to be a mom, but like, how do I blend the two? And that's when I went on this journey of like figuring out what were the pieces to be able to explain, share the wisdom, teach, and help parents understand how their brain functions. And I tell all my clients, you have to do this on yourself first. Like you have to promise me that you're going to implement this on yourself because once you feel it, once you learn it, you'll see it in a heartbeat on your child. So just trust the process and like, let's move. And so I started with parents because it was the easiest gateway for me from working in pediatrics. And now I work with parents, I work with non-parents, I work with high performance CEOs, I work with in corporate. Like a brain is a brain is a brain, right? So now I work with everyone. But that's just kind of the method and the realm of how I got to kind of where I've gotten.
Okay, Dr. B, I have a 18-month-old. How do you feel about the iPad? I know I haven't given it to him yet. Of course, he sees it when we go out to eat with other people, whatever, but sometimes you just need a minute in front of the TV. I know. What are your thoughts?
I want to be careful in terms of like someone hearing this, if I like with what I'm about to say, this could strike a nerve. And like maybe that's not a bad nerve that I'm striking, but at the same time, I also am very acutely aware of how difficult an 18-month-old, right? Like it's a, and look, I've been through the ringer within my life and I've had lots of trauma in my life. And so when my children were younger and I was going through my own grief after Jonathan passed away, sometimes I needed those iPads to be a sitter because I had nothing left. I literally had nothing left. Did I use them for years and years? No. But there was absolutely weeks, if not months, where I was like, here, like I don't like, I literally didn't care. I was like, I didn't have the capacity to care. I was like, have at it. Now, and for many, many years, my children, like, honestly, I don't really know where Eli's is right now. It's kind of a mystery. I think it's in a backpack of his, but I'm not quite sure. Charlie's is in my closet. They're never charged. And the only time they use them is on road trips or plane rides. So because we have that in our house, though, they never ask for them. They don't have the most up-to-date apps. They don't really know a lot of like how to download and increase and like they just don't, right? Now, TV, I'm okay with. It's farther away from their eyes and we can sit and watch TV together. And so it's somewhat spending time together. I don't really put like a cap for my children on like, you can only watch TV on the weekends. Like if you're tired after school and you want to relax, like you can watch something. Am I going to let them watch YouTube shorts? No, like that's just like rotting your fucking brain. Like that's, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like a waste. Every now and then I'll walk in, I'll see Eli. I'm like, what are you like? Literally, what are you watching? Like, what is this? Let's move on from this, right? But what I would say is that because of the screens, it is a lot of extra increased stimuli to the brain that a child does not need. It is a lot of extra stimuli to the brain that adults don't need either, right? That's part of the reason why we're all burnt out and exhausted is because of the extra stimuli that is going to our brain and we do not need it. So I would err on the side of don't, but I also understand that, you know, if they're throwing food and you're like so done and you want to have a conversation with your partner at dinner and you're like, here, just watch a show, like on the phone or something like that. Like, I'm not going to judge. However, if there's an entire table where every single person in the entire family is on their phone and their children have phones, that is sad to me. That is like, do you all have any sort of communication? Like you're sitting at a table and it is meant for you to communicate. It is meant for it to be a time for you guys to like stop what you're doing, pause for a second and check in. And if every single one of you are on your phone, teenager, 10-year-old, mom and dad are on their phone, like that to me is heartbreaking. That to me is not building connection and healthy relationships within your own family dynamic and not being present in the world around you. You're just living in the internet, It's so sad.
Dr. Brooke, can I ask you a question? How a lot of people talk about the stomach being a second brain and how we should be aware of that. Yeah, I guess that's what I pivoted from the food. Well, we were just talking about with caffeine, for example, right? Which is a stimulus for all of us. And how for me in performance, when I know I'm going to perform in front of 20,000 people with pyro lights and all of the loud noise, that is too much for my stimulus. I have got everything. But we were just talking about how that's been a major theme right now, the nerve endings within the stomach.
Yeah, it is 1,000% a second brain. I can give you a perfect example. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's 2 years ago, I think, maybe 2 years ago. And of course, for me, I was like, what? I thought I was doing everything right. I'm regulating my nervous system. I'm practicing what I'm preaching, all the different things. And I went on this exploration of, I was already dairy free from way back when I was breastfeeding Eli. I just stopped with dairy and it made a really big difference and I never went back. I was already gluten free. And I would say that's probably about it at the time. And I really started deep diving into my gut health and what that looks like for me. And I started eating based on listening in, right, to what my body and brain was telling me in terms of my gut. I don't eat corn anymore. I very rarely eat sugar, even though that's a really, really hard one to do, is to take refined sugar out of your diet. But I will tell you that I have flares of brain fog or this or that when I don't eat in the way that my body longs for me to do. 1,000%.
Yeah, and someone like me who has endometriosis, those flare-ups, those fogs, for sure are not there when I don't eat right, and then it does affect my mental state.
Can I say one more thing about the eating stuff?
Yeah.
That not a lot of people recognize. Your jaw is one of the strongest, if not the strongest joints in your entire body. Okay. Your jaw. Okay. Your masseters, right? And so like TMJ, like that's why people have pain, neck pain, like the whole thing. I know that the term emotional eating is, we all hear about that, or like, oh my gosh, I need a cookie or a pint of ice cream. My boyfriend broke up with me, right? Like whatever that means for you. But there is a piece to that that people don't understand, that emotional eating is really emotional regulation. Okay. So like you are chomping down on a food, and every time you give pressure into the joint, you're giving feedback into your nervous system. And so your nervous system is regulating through the pressure in your joint. And so a lot of people don't realize it's not just the emotional side of eating, it's the regulation of your emotions through something like your jaw. Does that make sense?
It's very funny that you say that because I went to my facialist yesterday and she asked me if I was stressed recently. And she talked about it based off my jaw,
Yeah.
that she said it looked very strong. And I was like, well, of course I'm stressed. I've been handling my mother. But anywho, you know, but I thought it's just funny how that's literally perfectly what I thought it was. I like tilted my head and said, oh, I never thought of it like that.
Yep. Yep. So you
Interesting.
can get something called a buccal massage, which is part of a facial where they
Yeah.
literally have gloves on and they go in and they massage this joint. And I also know
Yeah.
people who get Botox,
Right.
not to like slim their face out, Botox because they clench so hard. And that's because they're trying to regulate their nervous system and they don't recognize that that's what they're trying to do. But it's so much pain going down their neck and their shoulders and their back that they will get Botox to release that muscle.
Dr. Brooke, it's all about biting my tongue and making sure I don't say too much. Do not be reactive to your mother. That's where it's all
Oh,
about.
Sarah, it's so hard.
Yeah, I mean,
Very interesting.
yeah. I tell a lot of people to sleep with a weighted blanket because it's getting the deep pressure into your nervous system that your body is craving. But it's like you're doing two things. You're resting your body, but you're also getting in the deep pressure that you need. The craziest piece is I talked earlier about how you probably don't want to be touched with a 10-foot pole by your partner and intimacy and all the things. But truly, sometimes what can really help your nervous system is deep pressure and hugs and just like pressure into your body and nervous system. Totally.
What is the most common theme or advice that you give your clients?
I would say you have to start with the basics. Rest, right? Sleep, water. Like literally start with the basics. And I know that's like, well, that's not innovative. Well, it doesn't have to be innovative if it works, you know? You have to start with the basics and you have to start listening in. If I could give one piece of advice, it would be to ask yourself all day, every day, literally in every single circumstance, 24/7, how do I feel? How do I feel? How do I feel? Like, just keep it like when you're like, I'm screaming at my mom or what, how do I feel right now? How do I feel right now? How do I feel right now? Because again, your amygdala is just like, boom, here's a response. But like, it's almost the power of the pause in terms of saying, okay, well, how do I feel right now? Ooh, I want to wring her neck. Okay, well, I can't do that. So, all right. But I would start with how do I feel all day long, every day. And
The
just
thing
keep
that
asking yourself that.
the thing that I would say to you is I had a loss of my father 2 years ago, and I did the work, like you say, the personal trainer for your brain. I felt very conscious of doing that prior.
Yeah.
Sorry about my dog if you hear that.
Oh,
But
no.
since then, grief will shake up the system emotionally that you think you knew how to handle things, but now I've been really trying to self-regulate so many different ways, different exercises, but it does shake your system in a way that you handle things differently.
1,000%. I mean, I was doing this work well before Jonathan passed, and I was like, I can cheat the system. Like, I got this. Like, my knowledge, my studies, everything I tell my clients is in threes. So 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 hours, 3 months, 3 years. It just depends on like what you're going through, right? So divorce, 3 years, a move to a different city, 3 years, someone passing away, right? 3 years. And I was like, no, I can do this faster. You can't. You can't. And truly that goes to show that there is no quick fix, right? You have to trust your brain with what you're going through. And year one probably looked completely different, Sarah, for you than year two. And
Mhm.
year two ends up being usually the dust settles in a really, really hard way because you start feeling all the things in year two that you weren't capable of feeling in year one, that your brain was not ready to process, or your brain was able to let down its walls and like allow you to process, right? Like your brain was like, nope, I'm going to protect you from feeling this because you've got a lot on your plate and you're feeling
Yeah.
what you can feel right now. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Year three is kind of like, I thought Stella was going to get her groove back on three, and that didn't happen. It's like, well, womp, 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 right? Yeah. Year three
Aw.
is like, you're starting to pick up the pieces and come back to life. And I had to go through the whole 3 years of it to like truly move through the entire process of feeling fight or flight year one.
Yeah.
Like it slowly settles in a really hard way year two. And then year three is kind of like, all right, now what the fuck do I do? How do I pick up the pieces? And then year four, you really truly start living again, if you will. But it never, it never goes away. I'm so sorry you had that loss, but it never goes away. It just gets easier to walk side by side with in life.
Oh, Dr. B, this was lovely. Sarah and I are just so grateful that you came and chatted with us today.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, your humor, your honesty, and your brilliant brain. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I really appreciate all that you said. Yes, it's the work of my life, but it's also something that I'm really, really passionate about. And especially in today's age of social media, there's just so much shit and so much junk. There's just so much junk and people promising things. And it's so sad. It's like, it feels like it's so, I don't know. It's just, like, don't take advantage of people's vulnerability. Like that's like the last thing I would want to do. I'm in this to really truly help people and understand their brain and bodies and truly have really great mental health. Because I wish that Jonathan had found that. And so thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you for saying that. And I hope to, yes, be all those things, have a little bit of fun and shake things up, but also teach people things along the way.
Yes, we appreciate you so.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Sarah, there's nothing left to say. We love Dr. B. Dr. B, if you can hear us, come on back. We need another episode of this one.
Thanks for joining us today.
You can follow us on Instagram at Don't Start Podcast.
Or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And we'll see you next time, friends.
Don't Start is produced by Anthony Street Productions.